Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We got the crew. We have the crew. Matthew Partrik, the doc, the professor, Marc Phillips, and Mohammed Samji.
The Mo.
I'll come up with something clever, and I'll put it in post, guys. You just see. We will see.
All right. Oh, my. Now I'm worried.
You should be.
My name, I'm the Vagabond.
I can totally see Brian the Vagabond.
Today's episode of the Occasional Podcast is sponsored by Purist Audio Design. Quality audio deserves quality sound, like the purest of diamonds. Purist Audio Design, one of the originals in high-end, just launched their Diamond Revision. With improved metallurgy, flexibility, and enhanced shielding to protect your system from RFI, EMI, interference from noisy wireless devices, the Diamond Revision, just like all of Purist cables, is made right here in the US of A. For over 35 years, Purist Audio Design has passionately made high-end, handcrafted audio cables designed specifically for the needs of your system. They list their specs, such as resistance and shield quality, and you can find them at PURISTAUDIODESIGN.com. Purist Audio Design is veteran-owned and available worldwide. You have reached Season 9, Episode 5, AXPONA, HiFi, Highlights, and Best of Show. Woohoo! It's a big show for us, and it's an even bigger show here because, man, guys, was this event large or what?
Very big.
Mm-hmm. They sold out 200 rooms, listening rooms alone. We have a crew of like 5 or 6 even, I think, at the show. And
we're not even putting a dent in it so far. This show is so huge.
It's like crazy, right? And then there's the headphone section, and it's a walk. Everybody's feet okay? I mean, most of us are wearing really comfortable shoes, so I don't think that's an issue. But all health things checking out. Doc, does everybody look okay?
Yeah, we're all going to make it.
But what I thought was awesome is like it wasn't just like the normal crew of people attending. I kind of felt a little bit Munich-esque where I saw like husband and wives. I saw people bringing their kids. Yep. I saw a little bit more diversity. I want to see more, but it was nice.
I ran into these kids in the elevator, and I was, "How are you doing? We ate too much sugar." What music are you listening to? I'm tired of listening to jazz.
Yeah. See, now you know they're true blue audiophiles. Well, you know what I saw
Teach
more
them
of?
really bad.
Yeah, you know what I saw more of? Tattoos. I saw a lot of tattoos. I'm happy to see more tattoos at an audio show. Diversity, guys. That's all I'm saying. Diversity.
We want more of it.
Yeah, more of it.
More of it.
So overall, my thoughts on the show, just to kick it off, it's a big show. It's a good show. I feel like this ultimately is the peak of us coming back. So last year we had a show. It was okay. It was good. It was great, wasn't it, Mark? You liked AXPONA last year?
It was good. It was good. But one of the things this year, it just seems to be polished and perfect in a lot of ways. It's a really good show from a lot of different perspectives. One of them is just the fact that the rooms all sounded great. I have so many picks for the best sound at the show right now. And I don't even know which one is the best because they were all good.
Yeah, we're so used to some of the rooms sounding, and like room after room. There's probably at least 10 that I hit that I sounded fantastic.
And the funny thing is that my favorites were probably all within the first 2 or 3 hours. They seemed like they were all on the top 3 floors.
I started off with like my first 5 were just hit it out of the park. Absolutely.
And we've talked about this on the last year's episode too. And it's usually the opposite. You hear it takes a while for everybody to dial in. By the time you get to Sunday, things are starting to really settle and sound the best. So the fact that you guys kind of are feeling at least that stuff sounded good right out of the gate.
It did. It might have been listener fatigue as the day went on.
And I hope you guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan because the gentleman to the one room over from us has been playing the same Stevie Ray Vaughan track all weekend long.
Tin Pan Alley?
Yes,
yeah.
it is. But I mean, again, if he needs his stereo to sound the best it can, and if he loves that track, then good on him. I've just been hearing it a lot. The vibrations are coming through the wall, but it's totally good. So, Mo, do you want to kick off kind of maybe what your initial highlights were, and maybe we'll just start from there?
So I think my highlights were there were a few brands that folks on the team love that I just haven't had a lot of time with. And I think I was excited this time that I got to spend time with some of the brands I usually don't hang out with.
That's cool.
And I think I heard some good stuff. I think this time, I know the team likes Acora, so I really enjoyed the Acora and Amp Sound Room. I think if folks heard it on Friday, it was good. And then I think they did some magic this morning and swapped out some stuff. But today, after those changes, I was really impressed. I think I must have sat there for 10 or 12 minutes with the remote kind of bouncing through stuff. And I absolutely love the big Acora room with VAC. I was pretty impressed with the dynamics of that room and the speed of those drivers. So that was pretty awesome. Some fun stuff I saw. I think the coolest tweak I saw was from DS Audio. I love my turntable, and they have this device I'd seen earlier but never played with it, where you can get your records better centered. So you drop the little eccentricity detection device, and then move your record around millimeters to get it centered, and then I think you can even cut the spindle hole bigger. I doubt I'd ever do that.
Yeah.
Thought that was pretty cool. And in the same room, I'm always looking for new cartridges. I love my Lyra Atlas, but DS Audio, the latest optical cartridge, got me super excited from what I heard. I think it was the Grandmaster EX with their Grandmaster electronics. So that was pretty exciting.
You know what I hate about records? When the label is off, not the hole, but the the label can be off centered. Then you're trying to put it in.
Oh yeah,
I'm like,
That doesn't affect the sound, though, Brian.
damn it!
but it bothers
annoys me,
No,
though.
it bothers us, right?
Yeah.
And apparently it can be different from one side to the other because the press on the top and bottom may not exactly line up.
Yeah.
So they're like, you might have a different thing when you flip it over.
I'm just looking forward to the day when we finally move beyond this very primitive, playback medium and to something a little better. I'd like to at least be able to skip tracks once in a while.
The other two rooms I thought sounded really good. I loved the smaller Wilson room with the new Alexia V's with audio research. Thought that room sounded
a good choice.
The tonality was awesome. Dynamics was awesome. That room was great. And the other room I enjoyed is I got to spend some time with the Vinny Rossi integrated with the Rockports. And that room just had a good feel to it. It was really small, but it felt big. Had great tonality and had, the great low frequency. So that room got me excited as well.
Yeah, I second that one. I like that. We talked about this earlier, but I really like that room too. It was
good.
Good, yeah.
Well, the three of us were there together this morning, so it was kind of, hey, Mo. Mo kind of slipped in next to me, and he didn't notice it was me.
I didn't even notice it was Mark. I just sat
And
down. I was
I
listening.
thought he was doing that on purpose to see if I'd notice him.
And he tapped me on the shoulder. I'm like, oh, hey.
And then, and then Matthew was right behind us. But yeah, Matthew said first thing in the morning, he said, I'm going up to see Vinny's room. And it's like, I'm going too, so I'll see you there. And then Mo shows up. So, yeah.
We were in there for an hour. In a day that I would felt already pressed to move on. So I think that speaks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and a really good job for a beryllium dome, I think, too, on those Rockports. I found it to be a very pleasing sound. Not that I don't love beryllium domes. I think they can sound really good, but they're expensive speakers, so I have high expectations for the execution when they're at that level.
System matching is so important. Even I'm usually not a huge fan of Magicos, but I heard them today in the Luxman room, and I really liked the pairing. I thought that room sounded really great, too.
Yeah, new turntable from those guys. That's the news out of here. But yeah, that room had a nice organic kind of touch to it. I felt like, and I feel like for me at least, Magicos are one of the few people that do a lot of hard dome tweeters that nail it. I'm always pretty cool with Magicos when it comes to their sound, and their design's pretty fun too. So, Matt, what do you think? What was the most interesting thing you kind of saw so far?
I had never seen these Benek speakers. Are they from Germany or they're from Switzerland? Berneke,
but it looks like
Berneke, and the W8, which was about 8,500, I think, and they're diminutive. They're no more than 36 inches tall. They're probably 5 or 6 inches wide, and the stand that they're on is almost like this mic stand. They're floating an inch or so off the floor, and they filled this room with sound in a way that I should have just closed my eyes and thought, there's no way that's coming from these small speakers. So it wasn't one of these like, it sounds good for a small speaker. It sounded really, really good. There's a side firing woofer that
I was in that room too. Same impression. Just wow for such a tiny little tower.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, that's my favorite audiophile trick out of all the psychoacoustic tricks we do. Small speaker, big sound is the most impressive of all of them.
No doubt. They were being powered by. They had a Technics, I think the top tier Technics turntable, and then one of the new Technics integrated amps. Sounded great. I was very impressed with the Linkwitz, which was just down the hall from that. These are these open baffle mids and tweeters that sit on a conventional woofer array, and they sound fantastic. They're not big at all. Again, they're probably the mid and tweeter is no more than 18 inches tall, and it's got a rear firing tweeter on it, and they sound amazing. So I was very impressed with those quite a bit.
I wanted to give some props that pumped into my head. I don't know if you guys got a chance to visit the Zoo Audio in Kimber room. They decided to do the thing that I always find really ballsy, and that is a direct A/B comparison of their stuff, like a live demo. And in this case, it was between two Kimber cables, and he redid. So he did two of his new Zoo Audio Dirty Weekend X. They're $6.99 each. They're a new Dirty Weekend variant that's smaller, stacked on top of each other. Everything else identical, and then just A/B between the two cable lines. And I'll say most people coming out of there were saying they heard a difference, but not a lot of, whoa, this one's bad and this one's good. But enough change to most people be like, it's subtle, but some difference. So what is some magic voodoo or whatever, I cannot say, but an interesting way to demo. The only other one that I've ever seen do this is the INNUOS guys who did it with their music servers once, and that I thought was very, in a way, risky because
they continue to, they're still doing it. So every time they have some kind of upgrade, they do A/B comparisons for everybody, and they're always obvious, they're always clear.
Yeah, and it's I think it's risky because if you own one of those and you hear the other one, you're going to want to upgrade. But if you have it and you hear the other one be worse, that's the thing where I was like, you got to start at the bottom and go up and let it get better. Because if you start at the top and you go down, you're like, oh man, and you own that one, you're like, I'm not getting it. The thing that I'm chasing, that sound.
You just feel bad.
Yeah, it's like a sad situation, right? Yeah. So, but it's always, that's why I like it, because they're like not afraid to really get in there and do something. So, yeah, INNUOS does a good one, and they're here too. Did anybody get to go in their room?
Yeah, I did, and they're
what were they playing with?
So they got the new the Pulsar, which is upgraded. You know, they came out with the Pulse, which is just designed. It's not a server. It's it doesn't have a transport. It doesn't have a ripper, but it is just designed for people who just want to stream. And then this new one is the Pulsar is a little bit more evolved, a little bit more of an all-in-one box. And one of the things they did with the A/B comparison this time was they switched it. On the unit itself, you're able to switch the reclocking, the USB reclocking. Mm-hmm. So you can just pull it out and then do it again and hear the differences. And the USB clocking device inside that thing made a gigantic difference. It wasn't bad to start with, but when it's reclocked, it all of a sudden seemed to make sense. Everything was coming in at the right time, obviously. But the music just makes sense, and it was much better. You hear that part. You don't go back to the other one.
Matt, what did you kind of think of your cost, no object pick? Did you have one room and it's like a big room, big speakers, big everything, big sound?
I'd never heard the Vim Birds in person. They sound really, really, really good. The sound stage was up at the ceiling, and they had, I don't know if what their room treatments were really helping them. They certainly weren't hurting, but I like I said, I'd never heard them in person. I was very, very impressed. Mo, how about you?
I think the room, if I want to look at the big room that I enjoyed, was VAC Acora room. Mm-hmm. And I was just impressed by, those speakers are big, but they're not that big. And that was a hard room. It was huge, and there's not real walls in there. The amount of bass they were able to create and the speed of the bass and the quality of the decay, I was really impressed. And we had David Solomon, who was playing DJ, who always picks the best tracks. Mm-hmm. Probably helping the situation too, but I really enjoyed that room.
Yeah, I always appreciate, I think, the most great appreciation I have is for when the response in the bass has like a nice transit. Like it's a good thing in the mids, but when the bass is tight in that manner.
You want that speed and that perfect decay and like that little bit of, texture. It was nice.
Because I think the reason I appreciate it the most is one of the hardest things to get right, because the room is so of a big part of that you're like, it can fall apart so easily. So when you really get it, it always feels special,
Yeah, I was speaking to Val after, and he was trying to explain that the secret sauce for them was like that cabinet made out of granite that basically does not resonate or move.
Yeah, and it's also very light, surprisingly, right, Mark? I think Mark has a ripped spleen from moving those around. Or was it, you didn't review them, did you?
Which ones?
The chorus.
The chorus?
Not the big ones. The big ones are like...
No, I did the little ones. So, but I still have I still use the stands on all the monitors I test, and the stands are 120 pounds a piece. They're heavy to move around, Oh, I got to bring
even the bookshelves that the stand mounts were like a couple hundred, weren't they?
I did the stands with the monitors. The monitors are about 60 each.
Oh.
And the stand was another 110, 120 around that. So it becomes almost a 200-pound speaker. The next two models, for some reason, they're the SRC 2 and the 3. They're both exactly the same weight, which is around 250 pounds. Mm-hmm. And these new speakers, I forgot what the final number was.
400 and something.
Yeah, it's over 400, but still, it's knowing that it's a solid granite enclosure that you think it would be heavier. And no, I mean, they're able to push it in and out of that room, so it's not that heavy.
What do you guys think of ATC? They're in 2 rooms this time. They have their own room, and they're also partnered with the Auralic room down on the main floor. They're more of a pro brand, I think, but they make a consumer line. So and I asked the guy, what's the big difference between the pro and the consumer? And ultimately he said, the cabinets. They cost more because of the cabinets. The drivers are all the same. Not exactly the same from model to model, but they're the same across the pro to the consumer lines. Pro line, you can actually, they're painted a matte black specifically that if you ding them up, they're easily repaired. Efficiency of a tool. So ATC, yeah, they had a good show, I think. In the other big room too, they really filled it well, and they did their thing with a lot of classical music I heard this time. So Auralic room it's always a treat, but he mixes up the speakers quite a bit. But this time, yeah, passive ATCs really kind of hit it home for me. Mark, what were your 2 and 3 number rooms?
This is going to be tough. So again, so many rooms sounded great, and there were so many that hit it out of the park that I don't even know when the final ranking comes. I don't even know if I want to mess with the ranking. I think I want to say these 10 all were amazing. But one of the ones I just came from that had this sounded a little bit different from all the other systems. Just had a more relaxed, laid back sound. Was I went in the Vanna room, and they had the Ferrum audio. They had the new DAC there, which is only $2,700, and it's amazing in all the things it does. And it was Jadi amplification. They had the EAT turntable, the top of the line turntable with their phono stage, but the speakers were the Martins, and they were the Martin Mingus Quintet. Is it Quintet? 2s. Yeah, Quintet. I can't read my own writing, Brian. Help me. And so, they're 75 grand, which is a lot. I mean, I reviewed Martin Oscars before, and they're more like the $10,000 to $20,000 range. These were $75,000. They were beautiful speakers, but again, not that large, and with a Grimm audio server. And it was such a beautiful, relaxing sound that it was just different. It wasn't that nobody was trying to impress me with the volume because Roy Feldstein, who was running the room, Vanna, he doesn't like doing that. He just wants to relax and have everybody chill, and everybody was really chill in there.
Love it.
Yeah. My number 2 and 3, one of them would have to be the Acora room. And so I was worried because this was the room that they had placed the SRC3s in last year, and the room would look like it was under construction still. It was such a mess, and I think it screwed them up. But then I heard the new flagships in Florida knocked me out. They were my best to show. And so this year they were in that same room, and I said, "Uh-oh," and they were pushed all the way to the back curtain, the false wall, and yet they still projected forward into the room to the point where it was, so it was a soundstage depth, but it was coming at you instead of going back behind the speakers. And of course, I did Chocolate Chip Trip in that room, and so those speakers earlier in Florida, they were my champs for Chocolate Chip Trip. They still are the champs because even pushed up against the back wall, still plenty of depth, plenty, focus, clarity. They're really amazing speakers. These are going to be a classic, and I love them a lot.
Yeah, and we had a bit of a trip with the chocolate chip trip at the Dr. Vinyl room. You remember, we couldn't. You know the track much better than I do. But we sat down, and it was like the craziest thing in a way, because the album that he had, the version he had, he's like, well, I just ordered it online, but there was no track, no title on the artwork of the cover. And I'm like, all right, well, just pull it out of the sleeve. No track, no nothing. We didn't know if it was the record till we put it on, because there's no identification of anything on the artwork.
And Tool consistently wins Grammys for best album packaging when in the once in a while that they deliver, because the last one came after 13 years of nothing. But it's the Adam Jones is the guitarist, and he does all the artwork, and it's amazing. But yeah, you're right. It was confusing.
And then on top of that, we started up. So now we don't know if it's the record, right? We didn't at this point. We didn't know if it was the record. We put it on, and the speed was unknown, like what the revolution was supposed to be. So now we're sitting there listening to a track that we don't know if it's the right fucking track, but it's also not playing at the right speed. So I was like, I felt like it was like the universe was playing a trick on us at that moment, because it was like in a dark after hours room, And then Mark actually woke up without his kidney in a bowl and a thing of ice. And I was like, that was a serious chocolate trip. That's all I'm saying. There you go.
Was it a 45 then, or what was it?
I wasn't in charge of it.
I
was just watching and laughing.
Yeah, I think it was 45.
But he did have that optical. We were talking about this earlier.
DS Audio.
That's the DS Audio needle?
That's the DS Audio. That is
really
revolutionizing the cartridge industry, because everybody is totally lining up for that.
Yeah, so they had the, I think in the Dr. Vinyl room, they had the regular Grandmaster, which is, I haven't heard, but I've heard great things about it. And the one that I heard downstairs was the new Grandmaster EX, apparently.
And I'm just so curious, like how it reads with optics instead of like physical touch. I have no idea. Does anybody know how it works?
It's magic. It's magic. No, it's been explained to me. Not only is this revolutionizing the cartridge market, but there's a whole bunch of manufacturers who are concentrating on coming up with the specialized phono stage that's needed for this cartridge. So it isn't just, you buy one from DS Audio, which you can, but I saw EMM Labs and Meitner both. They have a version that they were showing. And
does it require a special preamp?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Special one, yeah.
That's a company going out, putting themselves out there by making a specialized preamp for a cartridge that they do not themselves manufacture.
Yeah.
That's right, but they see the future. So when I was in Denmark last summer, again, they were using it, and they were looking at designing their own. So that will be its own little cottage industry, coming up with the specialized phono stages that you need to run this optical cartridge.
How do you think it sounds? Have you heard it in comparison?
I've heard it many times. It's amazing. It's clean. It's direct. It just kind of spoils you. Although I did talk to somebody not too long ago, and they said the same thing I was thinking, is that DS Audio is amazing, but I still have time to listen to a Koetsu.
Can I ask a question? Would you consider it no longer analog?
I like that question, by the way.
I don't know. To me, it's interesting. Like when I listened to the Grandmaster EX it was the Wilson room with the Alex V's, same as what I have in my room, so I know them well. I really liked the sound of it. And I think the reason why I liked the sound of that optical cartridge is it's kind of similar reasons why when you listen to like really well recorded reel-to-reel, it's got that nice sound, that you could say analog sound, whatever you want to call that sound, but it's a sound that I really like.
It's like listening to reel-to-reel.
Like tape. And I think
it's got that perfection, yet it's got still the warmth. So it doesn't sound digital. I remember back in the days when turntables were coming back into the field, and they were not only was digital trying to sound more analog, but analog was trying to sound more digital. And one of the things about the Rockport direct drive turntable that they used to make, the very expensive one, was that people who were really into analog thought it sounded too much like digital because it was so clean.
Mm-hmm. And it gets me excited because like some days, like when you hear those great reel-to-reels, it's like you want one, but then you don't want one. Because there's no content, and the content is so bloody expensive,
and the decks break down all the time.
Yeah. So if I can take my very large record collection and play it back and get that kind of tape-like sound, that's exciting.
Absolutely.
Does it cut down on surface noise? I mean, usually guys clean their records when they're here. So
the last time I heard it was Dr. Vinyl at his house, and he has a ultrasonic machine. So if you got a DS audio, I would still hear surface noise. It isn't like getting rid of surface noise, but it just seems like it's one of those things where it's just you're getting more music out of the groove, and it just jumps out at you, and the transient edges are just sharp as can be. Yeah,
Brian, you don't wash your records?
I'm more of a digital guy. We do not have a disc washer at the house, but I use a static brush when we do. So that's the best you're going to get out of me right now. Is it true that you can put them in the dishwasher? Does that help, or is that a myth?
Myth.
If you want to lose the labels,
you're gonna don't get the labels wet. And that's
Doesn't
the problem.
the heat like totally?
I'm sure it'll warp it
might
if it's
come
too
out.
hot. Yeah.
No. But I do know people who clean records. Joy apparently is the preferred dishwashing liquid,
but manually.
But you do it completely manual, like you were washing fine china that you were worried, so you did it by hand. You didn't put it in the dishwasher. You don't get the labels wet. That's the biggest thing. I've had record machines that get the labels wet. It's a deal breaker. The value of the record is based on that. I do know plenty of people that use Joy, and then the most important thing is having a rinse with some kind of distilled water or purified water, or triple osmosis, whatever you got.
Tips, guys. Bonus tips, not just the recap of the show.
We were talking about AXPONA, and now we're talking about washing records in the sink.
So back on task, folks.
Von Schweikert was running a reel-to-reel player. So they were in a smaller room they didn't have the big giant room with the big giant $1.5 million system, but what they did have was a smaller system built around the Ultra 7s reel-to-reel, and it was almost like a missing ingredient. Like you have a dish that you love, and then somebody comes along and says, "Oh, put a little paprika in it," and you're like, "I love it even more." That's what the reel-to-reel, listening to tape on the Von Schweikert did for me. It gave me something I wasn't even expecting.
You guys want to hear about headphones?
Sure. Tell us about headphones.
Oh, nice. Wait, good acting, guys. Oscars for both of you. I'm teasing.
Yeah, I want to listen.
Did you guys go down there? Did anybody go in the room?
I took a walkthrough.
Yeah,
at one point.
I took a walkthrough there.
Oh, good. All right, good. Well,
I'm in search of a headphone amp, so I did a walkthrough there.
Did you get a chance to listen to any new headphones amps while you were down there? Did you find a Stealth down there to listen to?
David Solomon had a pair of Stealths that he owns, which was awesome. Nice. I was excited to see he had those.
In terms of the new news for the thing, there was the ZMF Atrium closed in prototype, $2,500 stock. That's the starting point, and then it goes up from there. That's a very popular brand if you want this like bespoke wood kind of feel. So they had a new one and all their other shit on display, and it was like hard to get a seat there. I was very surprised. Estelle & Kern has their new SR35. If you listen to the pre-show, we talked about that a little bit. And there's their new player that has like trickle-down tech. It's not the super expensive one that's made out of copper, but it is got a lot of quad DACs, 4 DACs for that thing. I got an opportunity to go to the Woo Audio Room and see their list of stuff. So I was mentioning to this Mo earlier that they make a lot of tube stuff, I think. And from my experience, depending on the tube, they will very often have like you were saying, Mark, is they kind of have a more solid state sound to the tube use that they do. They do a great job of keeping it clean and like keeping the bottom end from getting too flabby. So, that's their whole thing. But yeah, they had a headphone manufacturer they always bring in that brings their own sound room. Did you see that in the corner? It's like a little pod, and you can check out their headphones in this
isolation room.
That was a good idea. That was kind of cute.
I thought it was cute too.
They do that at Munich. There's the whole headphone section at Munich. There's a bunch of those rooms. Well, they build in general because it's a big warehouse space, but they build rooms, interior rooms, so they can just isolate it. So you can build a listening room for 2-channel, or you can have a little listening station for headphones. But it is a great idea.
Sennheiser had all their headphones. It was a good scene in there, a good vibe, and like it was very vibrant with people. And if you want to talk about diversity, I think you'll find a large diversity of the crowd there. However, the other part I like about that community is that because it's a little bit smaller than the 200 other rooms, I see the same people in there all over the U.S. So you go into any headphone show anywhere, and you run into the same cats, and they're sitting there listening, and they freaking love this stuff. They're sitting there. I can like pick them out. There's just like man, there's got to be a crowd of 15 to 20 dudes that just go from show to show to show to show. They're sitting in the same seats every show.
Probably listening to the same songs.
They are definitely listening to the same songs.
They're listening to Chocolate Chip Trip.
And then there's Mark, who's sitting there always listening to Chocolate Chip Trip. Mark essentially does the same thing, but he demands it of other people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
No,
I like the
I
crowd.
walk
They're
into
nice.
rooms now and they're playing. They say Mark's here, play Chocolate Chip Trip, and
Put it on.
it's like my theme song
It's
when
like-
I walk into a room.
It's a good track.
It's a good track, but also that's like what they used to do for Atkins. So you're like the new Atkins. They definitely be like, Atkins is coming. Put on whatever, one of his tracks that he produced. But the headphone crowd, they're very passionate, as we all are, but they just have a little more solidarity in their like community. Seems very tight knit, and they know each other and they see each other. And these guys, oddly, a lot of dentists for some reason in a crowd. I don't know why. But there's like 3 or 4 dentists that are always there at every show.
They like to wear the headphones to drown out the patients.
The screams.
The screams of pain.
I'm not a big fan of the sound of a drill in the tooth. It's just not my favorite. I don't know about you guys. Was there any tip, trick, or accessory, or just like a kind of a fun thing that happened in a room that you thought was unusual or new for you? I hate to put you on the spot. He didn't have this one ahead of time, folks. So if he...
Did I have any of these ahead of time?
No, none of us. We're being. Brian's tired of tossing us softballs. He really wants to challenge us now.
If I had to pick some new tip or trick that was different for me this time that I'm actually interested in trying when I go home, was seeing that DS audio device that allows you to get your spindle perfectly centered. And, I can totally see if that's slightly off, that will totally impact your cartridge tracking. And I like that it was actually super easy to use. Like you just put it on, it shows you how far it's off. You just make just push your LP just a little bit, and it seemed to make a big difference on the measurements that were produced. So I'm actually interested in trying that.
And I was just thinking about that is that when I went to Munich last year, I saw a ton of stuff. So accessories, record cleaning brushes that were amazing. But I haven't really spent too much time in the marketplace yet. So maybe I'll do that tomorrow.
I saw Christopher Hildebrand from Fern and Roby has isolation feet for $400 for a set of 4, which I thought was a great deal.
Nice.
That's great.
So that's a slam dunk for Christmas stocking stuffers for me. So if
and
you
I
guys
heard
know
he
my
has a
wife-
new record weight.
Am I right?
I was just going to say, the answer that you guys all gave is wrong.
You were prompting us
You have to get your
talk
PTA
about our
branded record weight.
The biggest softball ever. And you guys are this is just
Whiffing
whiffing
it.
at the end,
Should've.
like struck 3 times out on a single pitch.
You forgot to bring the cue cards, Brian. Talk about the record clamp.
Yes, folks, we do have a new record clamp, a record weight made of solid bronze that you can purchase on the site. Just go to Part-Time Audio. Yeah, you go to the site or you can subscribe to our newsletter too on the site, and it will prompt you, and we can get you one if you're interested. We mentioned it on the pre-show, but we're mentioning it again here. Despite my co-host's best effort to ignore our beautiful, beautiful solid bronze record weight, 800 grams, and it's co-branded with the PTA roundel. Our logo fits like really cool on the top of this, guys, and it also acts as a 45 adapter when you flip it over. So if you don't understand what I'm talking about, check out the site. There'll be some images up there. But if you get a chance, it's a great way to support the site in this podcast too. So there's your sneak attack ad right in the middle of our conversation. Sorry to be deceptive, folks.
And it's also a very effective weapon if you get into a street fight.
Yeah. So I showed it to some people this weekend, and funny enough, everyone that held it, like,
Felt compelled to try to swing it at your
Wielded
face.
it
Yeah,
as a weapon.
Started doing bicep curls with it.
They held it. They bounced it. They're exactly right. They bounced it in their hand up and down and like looked me right in the eye. Like, I wonder how many blows it would take before this man's head completely caves in.
The other tweak that we saw lots of is like everyone's making a damn network switch.
Yeah, that's true.
And I wasn't a believer. I'm using an audiophile one now, and I did actually hear a difference. I think they're all pretty similar. They're all reducing.
Which ones did you hear? Were they comparing or?
No, I just saw a lot of rooms had them.
Yeah.
But you really need to go and try them. The one that I actually thought looked interesting that I'd like to try is Nordist introduced a network switch. And speaking to Meredith over at Nordist, that she was explaining that they tried to not take an existing switch and make it better. They actually built it from the ground up, which I was happy to hear. I also like that it's not the normal ugly, rectangular box. They actually made it as like a little circular disc, and which allowed them to spread out the network ports to have more separation. So it looked nice.
I just finished reviewing that Silent Angel network switch, and I was duly impressed. It certainly made a big difference from stock network switches.
Yeah.
So
I have the synergistic research one, and it made a difference. But I'm interested in trying the Nordis one that I saw today.
And I used the ANSUS one.
Oh, that's right.
And it was just remarkable, and it was night and day. So it transformed from me not liking the pair of headphones I was trying to suddenly really liking them.
So, Mo, out of all the rooms you heard this weekend, which one would you want to go listen to even more?
One of the rooms that I liked, but I felt like I didn't spend enough time in, was the smaller Wilson room with the Alexia Vs, which I have not spent enough time with, and they were paired up with the Audio Research Ref 10 preamp and the Ref 10 phono preamp with the clear audio table, and that room just had a good feel to it.
And how do they compare to you have Wilsons at home, right?
Yeah, I had the former Alexias, the Series 2s, and these were the new Alexia Vs. I have the larger Alexes at home, Alex Vs in particular that I love. Hearing that room today with the smaller Alexias, that's probably the best I've ever heard the Alexias play. And I'm normally a bigger fan of the Alexia or the Alex with D'Agostino. That's what I have at home and I love. But I just really love that combination of the Alexia V with the top-end Audio Research electronics. There's just something about the sound that just makes me want to go listen some more.
What did you guys think about that new Audio Research tube integrated that was by the door that opened up? It was playing right as you walked in.
I love that it comes in all those cool colors.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
and I'd love them to send us a review sample that we were waiting on.
But they had them attached to those Sonus Faber bookshelves that Mark reviewed the floor stander of. Remember what they're called?
So it's I reviewed the Maxima Amateur.
Yes, yeah.
But it's the Minima Amateur.
Yeah,
something. There's only two in the line. It's the solid wood enclosure, but yeah, really amazing speaker.
Yeah, and it was playing right as you kind of walked in. They had a lineup of all the colors. It looked like an Apple commercial, but a welcome sight. And I sat there and I listened to it for a while, and I thought it sounded beautiful. Again, very expensive, given the size, though. Mark and I often talk about two-ways and integrateds, and it's not British, like we've done the podcast on British two-ways and British amplifiers. But this one, it was American. I think it was Minnesota they're made.
Audio Research is Minnesota.
Yeah. But it was really nice to see it. Italian speakers, American audio amplifier, and they are trying to reach out very delicately to the mainstream a little bit more, and I say yay, because they had a cool digital readout made up of two tubes in the front. So here we have some more design elements that are supposed to be a little more eye-catching, and any effort to bring in more people, I applaud, even if it's maybe not the mainstream traditional audiophile norms that we see, but anything that's kind of bringing just cool or different, or just basically different for me. It's refreshing in a way. The industrial design with glass and knobs, that's all we have to work with in audio, especially in the amplifier side. So anytime anyone makes any little bit of effort there, I'm always yay. The other thing I liked from an industrial standpoint was I don't know which amp it was, but I saw the most ginormous knob ever this week. No, it was this knob. I think it was maybe 5 inches across, and it was actually in Dr. Vinyl's room.
Do you take two hands to turn it?
It was it clicked it was huge, and it was super fun. And I was it's so big, it's ridiculous, and I like it for that reason alone. So
big knobs, big gauges.
Yeah, big knobs, big gauge. Yeah, and I would say D'Agostino is the same way for me. Take these amps. Let's just add as much metal as we can onto this casework and shine it up real nice.
It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
I love it.
Yeah. He does traditionally top it off with a beautiful gauge.
Yeah, because I think he loves watches, and it's it's
steampunk,
watch inspired.
Yeah,
and I love it.
Yeah, it looks cool. It's cool.
He understands the concept that it is a jewel, and to make it such, and people will appreciate it, and hopefully keep it an heirloom.
The even bigger gauge I saw today that I thought actually looked really good is The newer Strom Tank 2500 has a gigantic, beautiful gauge. And those products in the past, I didn't really like the industrial design, but when I saw the Strom Tank 2500 today, I liked that it was a little smaller. It now had metal on the front that looked really pretty, and then the big-ass gauge that we've been talking about. So,
Matthew, you've gone to many audio shows, but this is probably your second time being on this side of things. How did this show kind of compare to the last for you, and have you any big takeaways from your time on the press side?
It's a bigger show than Florida Audio Expo, so pacing myself was something that required a lot of effort. I'm not sure if I was completely successful in that regard, but I was fighting with some dark rooms and just happy that my phone was able to pull in some extra light. So I think I got some decent photos. The sound was, as people have already mentioned, very good. I didn't have a whole lot of room issues. I think it is wise to recognize that there's just absolutely no way to hit all these rooms, and find the stuff from the beginning that you know that you're going to be interested in, and hope that some of those other rooms that you hop into, you'll find something you've never heard of before. And
yeah, you need to, like I think we said in the pre-show, you need to make a plan. This is for us and for visitors, for attendees, everyone. It's so big, you need to do a little homework, look at what you want to find, and get there. And then hopefully just bop in your head to a couple other places, because even for us, we try to cover every room, but it's just not possible at a show this size. But there are delights to be found, delicious delights among the big-name brands and small-name brands. Okay, so this is the part where you guys imagine a really loud drum roll. Mark.
I don't have my cajon with me this time.
Oh,
so.
yeah, that
I
was...
did the cajon. Did it sound nice?
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
One of our shows, he did. I said this queued up, and out of nowhere, he pulled out his cajones and started banging on them. You know,
pulling out cajones and banging on them is not necessarily
cajon. Well, plural would be cajones.
I know,
but I only have one.
You mean cajon, not cajones?
Yo tengo uno cajon. Uno, no dos, no más.
Today's episode of the Occasional Podcast is sponsored by INNUOS. INNUOS engineers innovative, artful, hi-fi products that deliver unexpected warmth and accuracy. Products that unleash the full potential of digital music playback. Going beyond simple ones and zeros, INNUOS products elevate music enjoyment by offering true audiophile performance from your digital music library or hi-fi streaming service. Find an INNUOS dealer near you to hear the difference. What is your favorite pick of the show?
Okay, so my biggest pick is probably the first room I went into on Thursday night, setup night, and they had a special event for the unveiling of a speaker. And so 1 year ago, here at AXPONA, I heard a $100,000 mini monitor. That blew my mind because it sounded like I had a giant pair of Wilsons in front of me. And I couldn't figure out how they did it. I wound up consuming much of last year in going to Denmark, listening to Audio Group Denmark, listening to the Avik and the Ansas and the Borison. And I think I said that right. It's Borison. And I reviewed the entire system. It just came out. So it's been a lot of my last year doing this. But it was the M1 monitor. I had no idea at AXPONA that it was $100,000, which explained it for me why it was so great, because this is, just the technology behind it and how it can do this. And so I wasn't expecting this from these guys, but I walked into the room. They had a special unveiling, and I almost felt like I knew what it was going to be, and it wasn't. It was the M3. Instead of having a two-way monitor on a little stand, you have a floor standard that is probably close to eye level. It's over 5 feet tall, probably, and it's a 3 or 4 way, 3.5 way, whatever it is. It looks like an M1 in every aspect with the unique drivers and everything. Price, I was figuring if the mini monitor is $100,000, what are these big giant towers going to be?
$1 million.
No, $280,000.
Oh, so bargain.
Yet with all the great sound that I heard, this was probably the only pair of speakers that I heard that I felt like I was hearing a new level of performance. I was going somewhere I haven't been before. I was hearing a speaker do things that I haven't heard any other speaker do. Maybe it's first among equals here, but when it comes to what I think was the best sound at the show, it's going to be the Audio Group Denmark room, and they had all their top stuff. They had their C880 and their P880 separates, which are 70,000 a piece. It was all their best equipment in one room, and I couldn't believe the clarity of how much I was just hearing everything at once, and yet it all made sense. It was the ultimate in transparency, clarity, detailed, but at the same time, it was a beautiful sound. And it just sent chills through my spine. But this was like, as surprised as I was by the M1s last year, the M3s were really pushing the envelope of what I've listened to in my life as an audiophile. It's really amazing. There's no downside to these speakers.
It's hard to imagine what they're going to be able to do in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Two things I want to mention on the way out. One, I finally got to hear the Focal Stone, not the Rock.
So cool.
Outside,
I may buy those.
Yeah, for an outside thing, I can't express how fun and how decent quality the sign is. They're an outdoor rock looking thing, but the Stone. They had their new Focal Thiva line up there, the number 3. It's like $1,200 each, and then they have they always do all the sizes and they all are staggered, but it is their new line and they do a good job with their 2 channels is solid, and then they do the multi-channel stuff. So they had a multi-channel thing. They played me Tiny Dancer, and they tried to do the whiz bang surround sound trick thing, and they actually pulled it off because I kind of hate it when they try to do that, but this thing worked. And it was like a multi-surround sound experience. So they had a separate room, and so kudos to their display because they have like all this stuff. It looks like a CES quality room, right, with separate.
Well, what it is because they're opening up stores, a chain of stores, and so when they do shows now, it looks like you're walking into a store.
Yeah,
that's just their product,
yeah.
And it's like in Bang & Olufsen store or something. It's really impressive. You can do everything. You can listen to headphones. You can watch home theater, or you can hear the big utopias, and see what they sound like, and all the smaller systems. And what they do is they just kind of rotate. So. They turn on one system, everybody goes over there, and then they turn on another system, everybody walks over. That way, everybody kind of listens to everything while you're there, and it's a really great way to run a room.
Yeah, and they don't overlap each other. That's what I was like, all this noise, you get to hear
it would be
solidarity,
It would be impossible if they were playing at the time.
Yeah, because they do pretty loud.
Just to bleed through, from the rooms.
Yeah.
Is bad enough.
Yeah.
But doing 2 systems in the room, no.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that.
And I am familiar with this brand, but I'm not super experienced. I got time to spend in the Audio Note room, a British brand, and they like to tuck their speakers in the corners. He said like that is somehow the design. Like it's.
Yeah, I'm reviewing Audio Note right now, and at first I placed them in conventional positioning, and all the Audio Note cult. Are you going to put those in the right place? And I go, yeah, I was taking photographs. Relax. So what happened was, I thought it sounded really good just in a normal thing. I had to turn my listening around 180 degrees along the long wall and put them in corners where they could do it. And the next day, I had a notice on my door from the landlord saying, "Cut it out." So they all of a sudden started sounding huge. And lots of it's just huge, and lots of bass from 8-inch 2-way.
And that was where I was going with that. It was one of those things that I love the most is big sound, small speaker.
Yes,
they're not huge. The one they had on display at least wasn't huge.
They had the ANEs, and I have the smaller ANJs, and then there's the ANKs, which are even smaller.
I don't know why, but I really appreciate the freaking blue cone.
That's the hemp cone. So they have 2 different kinds of cones. One is black and one is the blue. The blue is so you know you have the hemp.
Oh. And they make all the electronics too, from end to end. You can have Audio Note if you so desire.
Yes, cartridges, turntable. This might be last year was the year for Audio Group Denmark. This year might be the Audio Note year because I'm totally digging it too. It's good sound.
Yeah, and that is all I think we got for you guys. Mo, Mark, Matthew. Triple M.
What?
Triple M. Thank you guys for helping me out on the show today. Hope you
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
M cubed. The Occasional Podcast is a production of the Part-Time Audiophile Network, which includes PartTimeAudiophile.com, The Occasional Magazine, the PTA newsletter, and Audiohead.com. You can stay in touch with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
The Occasional Podcast is produced and hosted by Brian Hunter. Executive produced by Scott Hall at PTA Productions. The Occasional Podcast and its original associated music is monitored, mixed, and mastered on the Focal Trio 6 BE studio monitors. If you haven't already, please subscribe to The Occasional Podcast on iTunes, Google, Spotify, or wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.